Hello there everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's a new week and you know what that means. We have a new breakdown to go through. And this week we have The Evil Inside, which is my latest personal project that I'm really happy with how it came out. And for the past week I've been working on this piece, right? It took me about like 3 days from start to finish. And the only reason I was able to move that fast and be so efficient is because I've made extensive use of my own asset library, right? So those are assets that I've modeled and textured in the past, working on different kind of projects and scenes of my own. So whenever I'm able to, I just append those guys into a project, and it makes my life so much easier, and I can focus on what's important, like compositions and lighting and all that great stuff that makes a scene pop, right? So if you want to check out my asset library, make sure to go to store.meteor.com, and everything is right there. You can make use of it and you can use it on your own projects as well. All right, so now without further ado, let's take a look at how I've made this scene, right? Alright, so step one is the blockout. As God himself has told it so many times, everything starts with a blockout, everything in life. So what I'm doing over here is I'm creating the main layout of my scene, right? So I found out a nice image over on Pinterest that I've gotten inspired to, and I decided to create something kind of similar but in my own artistic way. So what I'm doing over here is just extruding and resizing a simple box into a corridor layout that's gonna become my scene, right? So as you can see over here, I have like these dudes that I'm using for scale reference, and it's simple boxes for now. I'm just using cubes as pillars, right? So I just get a cube, I add a bevel modifier on top of that, and I'm good to go, right? So when I'm happy with the blockout, what I do is I start doing a first pass at the lighting. So what you see over here is the main red light, right? So it's the focus. This is what your eyes are gonna spend their attention to, let's say. All right, so the whole scene is lit only by 3 lights. So you got the main red one, and then we have a couple of green ones. For instance, this one behind the camera is facing the wall, so I get only like soft shadows from that because the light doesn't go through, is not directed to my object. It's just the bounce light that I get out of it. And then I have another light at the end of the hallway just to add a little more depth to the scene and get some nice rim light on the zombie that's gonna be there, right? So next I just use my own assets, the ones that I've been talking about, and I'm just placing those around, right? As you can see, those are just a couple of baskets that I've made in the past, and I'm placing those around. You can see the cap on the floor and a whole bunch of things. The garbage on the ground, that's just a particle, that's just a hair particle, right? And I'm using like weights to distribute the particles on the floor, right? As you can see, we have a locker as well. I've just opened up the door a little bit to make it seem a little more interesting. And as I said, everything that you see in here is part of my own asset pack, so make sure to check that out if you're interested in quality assets for your own scene. All right, now for all those pipes, that's really simple. It's just a cylinder that I've added, right? I've rotated it around and I'm scaling it to be as thin and long as I want it to be. So that's exactly what I'm doing here. I'm just resizing a simple cylinder, and then I'm going into edit mode and I'm throwing a bunch of loop cuts onto that, just so I have enough geometry to work with. Then with the proportional editing tool, I just move those a little bit around so I don't get a perfectly straight what's that, like a pipe, right? So just move those around, then add a subdivision modifier on top of it, and you're good to go. For the posters, those are simple as well, right? You just make a plane, resize it into the correct aspect ratio that you want, and just throw a bunch of subdivision on top of it. And using the proportional editing tool, once again, just select one of the vertices and just move those around, make it seem like the poster is coming off the wall, or whatever you want it to, right? So just shady smooth, add a solidify modifier on that, and then go into shading, where just go into Google, search for any movie poster that you like, and just throw that into Blender and connect it to the base color. Maybe the UVs are gonna be wrong, so just unwrap that again and make sure everything's lining up nicely. Alright, so maybe you've seen this in one of Ian Hubert's tutorials, but you can use a not a wave texture, but a Musgrave texture, right? You can use that, a Musgrave texture, feed it through a bump node and feed that into the normal map input, and you're gonna get this like interesting look on the posters, which is a nice detail, right? So around here we have a special thing, which is, well, it's just me hiding in the back. All right, so all those alien looking thingies, I was just browsing CG Trader while working on the project, and I came across this really cool asset pack that Asset Kid, apparently that's his name, has made. It's only 13 bucks, right? So I really liked it. I bought it and I said, okay, those are gonna be really nice integrated into my scene, right? So just bought that pack, and here it is inside my project. The textures are really nice, so I definitely recommend you check that guy out and check his assets out if you want like cool organic stuff for your scenes, right? As you can see, those tentacles are just objects placed around however I saw fit, right? So nothing fancy in here, just placing stuff on the ground and make it look gross and horrorish. That's exactly what all of us like, right? So for this alien egg, I guess, that's sitting on the ceiling, I had this idea of having like spit or some kind of gross liquid coming out of it, and the way I've managed to do this is simply by creating a cylinder, right? So just make a cylinder, make it really thin, and place it in the right position, right around here, right? You want to get squares because we're gonna add a displacement modifier, and you want to have nice and even displacement all over the cylinder. Just play around with the parameters until we are happy, the strength as well, until we get something that kind of looks like liquid coming out of that alien thingy. Then just create a new material for it, name it whatever you want to name it. I don't give a shit. The only thing you have to do is turn roughness down to 0 and transmission up to 1, and you have this kind of liquid glass kind of material, which works really well. In the end, I've turned that a little bit into a greenish color. Right, so next I'm making use of Quixel, right? I guess you all know Quixel Megascans. They have a really nice high quality library of assets, and what I've went on to do was just grab some nice style texture set from them and just place it on my walls, right? Just make sure the UVs are matching up very okay. You don't have to be perfect, especially if you are not gonna see that. The ceiling, I've actually textured that inside of Substance Painter, but I didn't record the process, so the textures on the ceiling have been made in Substance Painter, but the textures I've used in order to texture those parts are coming from Quixel as well, so we don't make any textures, just download those from the internet, right? The main floor is just another tile set from Quixel as well. You can see that those tiles don't match up, but we don't really give a shit, right? It doesn't matter. that's not what the scene is about. And here's the scene with lights and textures applied. It's looking really, really nice, and the reflections are now let's take a look at all these assets that I've used around, right? So again, everything that you see on the screen is from my asset pack, and I've made use extensively for this scene as well. The textures are high quality, are all 4K, and all the assets are low poly, right? They've been designed actually to be used in games, but they are so high quality that you can use it in offline renderers as well, and they hold up, right? If you get the camera close to those, they're gonna hold up and the quality is gonna be all there. Alright, and this is how the scene is looking like at the moment, with the lighting, textures, and all the objects added into the scene. Everything is really nice, and stuff is starting to, look good. It starts to look as a scene, and that's exactly what I want. Right, so next step is adding details using decals. So decals, those are simply just textures thrown on a piece of plane, and the plane, you just place that on your scene, right? So again, Quixel Megascans, a lot of nice decals in there. I'm using images as planes to import the albedo texture of that decal, and then into the shading tab I'm just plugging in the other textures, right? So the opacity map, the normal map, the roughness map, all that. Make sure those are set to non-color, because, well, that's the way they're supposed to be. And in the end you end up with like these really nice details that you can scatter across your scene and add so much more detail, right? So as you can see, I'm just placing the plane on top of the floor or something, and you're gonna get those ugly, nasty artifacts. And what I recommend you to do is just move the plane up by a small amount, like 1 or 2 millimeters, and you're gonna be fine. Like, here's how easy it is to add blood to your scene just by using a couple of textures and a plane, and you're good to go, right? So look at how much detail you're able to get out of some simple decals. And here's the actual decals that I've used before and after, and let's also see how much of a difference those make when you're in rendered view. So if I switch back to that, let me just first show you how many of those I've got going on, right? So if I switch back to rendered view, you're gonna see just how much of a difference it makes when you have decals and when you don't, right? So without, so this is without and with, without, with, and you can see just how much of a difference that makes. Alright, so this nasty, ugly guy looking is something I've gotten off of CG Trader as well. It's a free asset coming from Carl Creates. Check it out. I didn't need anything really complex or specific, because this guy is gonna be sitting in the back and you're not gonna be able to see that much. It didn't have a texture, but I didn't even care because you're not gonna see him up close. So what I went ahead and did was take some gross skin, bloody texture looking, and just slap that on this guy, right? As I said, I don't care if it's nice looking, I just want to have a bit of detail into that. He's gonna be in the back, you're not gonna see him. Right, so I've rendered the scene. Now we are in Photoshop and we are ready to do the compositing and post-processing. So what I like to do is render in passes. So I get the raw render, I get the AO pass, and I get the fog pass. And the reason I like doing fog pass in a separate pass is because then I can go into Photoshop and I can control just how the strength pretty much of the fog. Because if we were to render the scene with the fog enabled, embedded into the raw render, then you're not gonna be able to take away from the fog or make it more intense or change the color of the fog, right? So just do that in a different pass and you're gonna thank yourself. Alright, so the AO pass, what I do with it is make a levels adjustments and play around with it. right? So then just set that to multiply and just look at the difference an AO pass does to your scene. I always recommend anytime you render something with cycles, just go ahead and enable AO pass and get an AO pass for every render that you do, because look at the difference this makes. It makes everything like more connected to the world. And this is the fog pass that I've been talking about, right? So set that to screen, and if I wanted to make it more extreme or take away, I would be able to just with an levels adjustments, but in this case I like the way it is, right? So here and now I just jump into camera raw filter and I'm doing my adjustments, right? So just moving sliders up and down. That's pretty much something I'm doing for every single render that I'm doing, and you can see just how much of a difference I'm making right now when I'm changing the hues of the red tones. Some split toning, which never hurts, some grain, and some vignette, and that's pretty much the whole post-processing. And this is the final render, right? Just look at the difference with a before and after. This is amazing. I'm really glad about how this scene turned out, as I said. Alright guys, so this has been it for this week's breakdown. I hope you enjoyed the evil inside the project itself, the little animation that I've done at the beginning of the video. As I said, I'm extremely happy with this project, and again, I hope you guys like it just as much as I do. Alright, so this is it for this week. I hope you enjoyed the video, I hope you found it interesting, and I hope to see you around soon again, right? Next week, next breakdown. Let's see what we're gonna make, and until then, don't forget, stay creative